9-year-old Cristiano went to bed hungry again that night. In the poor neighborhoods of Madeira, he lived with 4 siblings in a single room. He had no shoes, no jersey, but he had a dream. Who knew that the boy trembling from hunger would one day become the world's richest footballer? Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we dive into this incredible journey from absolute poverty to global superstardom, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe that dreams can overcome any obstacle, hit that subscribe button. This story will show you that greatness isn't born from privilege, it's forged in struggle. Chapter 1. The Island of Dreams and Despair. Madeira, a small Portuguese island floating in the Atlantic Ocean, was known for its breathtaking landscapes and wine. But in the neighborhood of Santo Antonio, where the Aveiro family lived, beauty was a luxury they couldn't afford to notice. The house, if you could call it that, was a cramped concrete structure with thin walls that did nothing to keep out the cold Atlantic winds. One room served as bedroom, living room, and kitchen for 6 people. Maria Dolores, the mother who worked as a cleaner and cook, José Diniz, the father whose drinking problem had cost him steady work, and 4 children, Elma, Hugo, Cristiano, and little Katia. 9-year-old Cristiano dos Santos Aveiro shared a single bed with his 3 siblings, sleeping sideways to fit them all. The mattress was thin and worn, with springs that poked through the fabric. On cold nights, which were frequent on the island, they would huddle together for warmth under a single blanket that had been patched and repatched countless times. But it wasn't the cramped conditions that hurt the most. It was the constant gnawing hunger. "Mine, I'm hungry," little Katia would whisper, tugging on their mother's worn dress. Maria would force a smile, her heart breaking. "In a little while, Mia Filia, Mama is cooking something special." But there was rarely anything cooking. The family survived on potatoes when they could afford them, sometimes rice, and on good days, when Maria had picked up extra cleaning work, perhaps a small piece of fish. Meat was a luxury reserved for holidays if they were lucky. Cristiano learned early not to ask for food when there wasn't any. He would watch his mother's face carefully, reading the lines of worry that seemed to deepen each day. When she looked particularly tired, he would announce that he wasn't hungry, even when his stomach cramped with emptiness. Despite the hardships, Cristiano found escape in the one thing that didn't cost anything: football. The streets of Santo Antonio became his stadium, lampposts his goalposts, and a worn tennis ball his prized possession. He had no proper football boots, the family couldn't afford them. Instead, he played barefoot most of the time, his feet developing thick calluses from the rough concrete and rocky surfaces. When it rained, which was often in Madeira's humid climate, the streets became slippery and dangerous, but Cristiano never stopped playing. "That boy will ruin his feet," neighbors would say, watching 9-year-old Cristiano dribble past makeshift obstacles for hours. But Madeira saw something different. While other children played for fun, Cristiano played with an intensity that frightened her sometimes. His eyes would narrow in concentration, his jaw would set with determination that seemed too mature for his young face. Even as a child, he practiced like his life depended on it, because in a way it did. One day, Madeira, Cristiano would tell his mother as she tucked him into bed, his feet dirty and cut from another day of street football, "I'm going to buy you a big house, with many rooms, and we'll never be hungry again." Madeira would smile and kiss his forehead, tasting the salt of dried sweat and tears. "Dreams are beautiful, meu amor, but we must be grateful for what we have." "No, Madeira, this is not enough. I will make it better." The determination in her 9-year-old son's voice was so fierce that Madeira felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't know whether to be proud or worried. When Cristiano was 10, a neighbor mentioned that the local team Nacional was looking for young players. There was no fee to try out, which was the only reason Madeira even considered it. "But he has no proper boots, no uniform," she worried aloud to her sister. "Let the boy try," her sister encouraged. "What's the worst that could happen?" The worst, Madeira thought, would be seeing her son's dreams crushed by reality, but she couldn't deny him this chance. Cristiano showed up to the tryouts wearing his only pair of shoes, worn sneakers with holes in the toes that Madeira had tried to patch with tape. His shorts were too big, held up by a rope instead of a belt, and his t-shirt was faded from countless washes. The other boys looked at him and snickered. Their parents drove expensive cars and carried equipment bags filled with multiple pairs of boots, shin guards, and backup jerseys. Cristiano carried nothing but hope. "Look at that kid," one boy whispered loud enough for Cristiano to hear. "Does he think this is a charity case?" Cristiano's cheeks burned with shame, but he lifted his chin higher. Words couldn't break bones, his mother had taught him. Only hunger and cold could really hurt you. When the coach, Antonio Oliveira, blew the whistle to start the scrimmage, something magical happened. The boy with holes in his shoes began to dance with the ball like it was attached to his feet by invisible strings. He moved past opponents who were bigger, stronger, and better equipped as if they were standing still. "Who is that kid?" Coach Oliveira asked his assistant. "Cristiano Aveiro, from Santo Antonio. His mother cleans houses." Coach Oliveira watched more closely. The boy's technique was raw but natural. His speed was remarkable. But what impressed him most was the boy's hunger. Not just for food, but for success. Every touch of the ball was desperate, like his life depended on it. "Sign him," Coach Oliveira said after the session. Immediately. When Cristiano came home with a Nacional youth team jersey, Maria Dolores cried. Not from joy, though there was that too, but from relief so profound it left her weak. "They want me to train every day after school," Cristiano announced, holding the blue and white jersey like it was made of gold. "And they said they might give me boots. Real football boots." The family couldn't remember the last time any of them had owned something new. That night, Maria washed the jersey by hand 3 times, treating it more carefully than her wedding dress. She hung it to dry in the cleanest corner of their single room, where it wouldn't touch anything that might stain it. "Promise me," she said to Cristiano as they watched the jersey sway in the breeze from their broken window. "Promise me you'll never take this for granted." "I promise, Mai. And I promise you something else. This is just the beginning." Training with Nacional changed everything for Cristiano. For the first time in his life, he had structure, purpose, and most importantly, hope. The club provided a small meal after training, usually just a sandwich and fruit, but for a boy who often went to bed hungry, it was a feast. His teammates still made jokes about his worn clothes and his strong Madeira accent, but on the field, respect was earned differently, and Cristiano was earning it with every practice. By age 11, Cristiano had become Nacional's star player at his level. Scouts from bigger clubs had started attending games, watching the skinny boy from Santo Antonio who played like his life depended on every touch. But with opportunity came an impossible choice. Sporting CP wants to invite Cristiano for a trial, Coach Oliveira told Maria after a particularly impressive match. In Lisbon, it's a chance at the big time. Maria felt her world tilt. Lisbon was 1,000 kilometers away. The family had never been separated. How could she send her 11-year-old son away from everything he knew? "We can't afford the trip," she said quietly, though her heart was breaking. "They'll pay for everything if he makes the team. Training, housing, food, education, everything." That night Maria lay awake listening to her 4 children breathe in the darkness. Cristiano slept restlessly, as he always did, his legs moving as if he were still playing football in his dreams. She thought about the empty refrigerator, about the bills she couldn't pay, about the holes in their shoes that grew bigger every week. She thought about watching Cristiano's light dim as he grew older, and realized that dreams didn't pay rent or put food on the table. But she also thought about something else, the fierce determination in her son's eyes when he promised to buy her a big house someday. 3 weeks later, 11-year-old Cristiano stood at the ferry terminal, with a small cloth bag containing everything he owned, 2 t-shirts, 1 pair of pants, underwear, and the Nacional jersey his mother had washed so many times it was more white than blue. Maria tried not to cry, but tears streamed down her face anyway. Her baby was leaving for a world she couldn't imagine, to chase a dream that seemed impossible for a boy from their neighborhood. "Remember where you come from," she whispered, holding him tight. "Remember us. I will never forget, Mai, and I will make you proud. You already have, meu amor. You already have." As the ferry pulled away from Madeira's shores, Cristiano pressed his face against the window, watching his mother's figure grow smaller and smaller until she disappeared entirely. For the first time since deciding to pursue football seriously, he allowed himself to cry. He was 11 years old, had never been away from his family, spoke with an accent that marked him as an outsider, and was heading to a city where he knew no one. All he had was a dream and a determination forged in hunger and hardship. It would have to be enough. Sporting CP's academy in Lisbon was like another planet compared to Madeira. The facilities were pristine, the fields perfect, the equipment new and plentiful. For a boy who had trained on broken concrete with a tennis ball, it was overwhelming. But it wasn't the facilities that intimidated Cristiano, it was the other boys. They came from wealthy families in Lisbon and Porto, spoke with refined accents, and wore designer clothes even to training. When they heard Cristiano's thick Madeira accent, they laughed openly. "Listen to the island boy," they would mock. "Can you even speak Portuguese properly?" At meals they would comment on how quickly he ate, not understanding that for someone who had grown up hungry, you never knew when the next meal might come. "Slow down, peasant, the food isn't going anywhere." At night, in the dormitory, Cristiano would lie awake listening to his roommates talk about their weekend plans, shopping trips, restaurant dinners, holidays abroad, luxuries he couldn't even imagine. He would think about his family sharing their one room in Santo Antonio, about his mother working extra hours to send him small amounts of pocket money, about his siblings who were still going to bed hungry while he ate 3 meals a day. The guilt was almost harder to bear than the loneliness. Every Sunday, Cristiano was allowed to call home. The conversations were brief. International calls were expensive, but they were his lifeline. "How are you, meu amor?" Maria would ask, her voice crackling through the poor connection. "Good, Mai. Training is good. I'm learning a lot. Are you eating enough? Are the other boys nice to you?" Cristiano would lie about both. He was eating enough, more than enough, but he couldn't tell his mother about the loneliness, about the mockery, about the nights he cried into his pillow missing home. "Everything is perfect, Mai. Don't worry about me. I miss you so much, Cristiano. We all do. I miss you too. But I'm going to make it, Mai. I promise. I'm going to make enough money to fix everything." After hanging up, Cristiano would return to his room more determined than ever. Every insult from his teammates, every moment of homesickness, every pang of guilt about living better while his family struggled, it all became fuel for his obsession with improvement. By age 14, something had shifted. The awkward boy with the strong accent had grown taller, stronger, and impossibly more skilled. His speed was now extraordinary, his ball control magical, and his dedication absolute, while his teammates relaxed on weekends. Cristiano practiced alone.
During one particular training session, a scout from Manchester United was visiting. Sir Alex Ferguson had sent him to look at another player, but his attention was completely captured by the Portuguese teenager who seemed to be playing a different sport than everyone else on the field. "Who is number 28? The scout asked Sporting's youth coordinator. "Cristiano Ronaldo dos Santos Aveiro. He's from Madeira. Been here since he was 11. Is he available for transfer? He's our best prospect, but for the right offer." That night, Cristiano called home with news that would change everything. "Manchester United wants me to come for a trial. In England." The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that Cristiano thought the connection had been lost. "Mun, are you there? I'm here, meu amor." Maria's voice was thick with tears. "I'm so proud of you, your father. If he could see you now."
Jose Diniz had died the previous year, his body finally succumbing to years of alcohol abuse and the stress of poverty. He never lived to see his son's dream begin to come true. "I'm going to make it, Mun. For all of us, the hungry nights, the cold, the worry, it's all going to end soon." 15 years later, Cristiano Ronaldo stood in the massive kitchen of his mother's new house in Madeira, a mansion with more rooms than their entire old neighborhood, with a view of the ocean that stretched to infinity. Maria Dolores, now wearing designer clothes but still insisting on cooking for her family herself, watched her son prepare lunch with the same intensity he once reserved for football practice. "Do you remember," she asked softly, "when you used to promise me you'd buy me a big house?" Cristiano looked up from the cutting board, his eyes soft with memory. "I remember being so hungry that my stomach hurt, and promising you that someday we'd never feel that again. And do you know what I used to think when you made those promises?" "What, Mai?" "I used to think that dreams were beautiful, but I was afraid yours were too big for a boy from our neighborhood." Cristiano set down his knife and walked over to embrace his mother. "The dreams weren't too big, Mai. The neighborhood was too small." Through the floor-to-ceiling windows they could see the old neighborhood of Santo Antonio in the distance. The concrete houses looked even smaller from here, the streets even narrower, but Cristiano felt no shame looking at where he'd come from. "Those hungry nights," he said quietly, "they made me who I am. Every empty stomach, every cold night, every day we didn't know where the next meal would come from. It all taught me that nothing in life is guaranteed. You have to fight for everything." Maria smiled, tears in her eyes. "And you fought, meu amor. You fought and you won. We fought, Mai. We all fought, and we all won." Today, Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the wealthiest athletes in human history. His success has allowed him to provide for his family, invest in businesses, and help other children who are growing up in poverty similar to what he experienced. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about his journey isn't the money, the trophies, or the global fame. It's that he never forgot the hunger. In interviews, he still speaks about those early days in Madeira with crystal clarity. He remembers the feeling of going to bed on an empty stomach, the shame of wearing shoes with holes, the determination born from desperation. "People see the cars, the houses, the lifestyle," he once said, "but they don't see the 10-year-old boy who trained on concrete with no shoes because he knew it was his only way out." That boy still lives inside the global superstar. He drives every training session, every match, every moment of self-discipline that has defined Ronaldo's career. The hunger that once gnawed at his stomach now fuels an insatiable appetite for excellence. The house in Santo Antonio still stands, though the Aveiro family no longer lives there. Sometimes, when Cristiano visits Madeira, he drives past the old neighborhood, not from nostalgia, but from gratitude. Those concrete streets taught him that dreams aren't inherited, they're earned. One hungry day, one barefoot practice session, one impossible promise at a time. And sometimes, if you're willing to pay the price, dreams come true in ways that exceed even your most desperate hopes. Have you ever been told your dreams were too big? Have you ever felt that where you came from would determine where you could go? Cristiano Ronaldo's story reminds us that circumstances don't define destiny. Determination does. Hunger can be a teacher, struggle can be a strength, and sometimes the biggest obstacles become the foundation for the greatest triumphs. Share this story if it reminded you that no dream is too big for someone willing to work for it. Because somewhere tonight there's a child going to bed hungry, dreaming of a better life. They need to know that it's possible.